Jared Cole was a simple man, a farmer like his father before him. He lived in a small village on the edge of a dense forest where the trees whispered in the wind and the rivers sang in the silence of the night. Jared worked hard from sunrise to sunset, tending to his crops and feeding his animals. Life was not easy, but he was content. His wife, Evelyn, was a devoted woman, though she often dreamed of a better life. She longed for wealth, for comfort, for a future where they wouldn't have to scrape by each winter, wondering if there would be enough food for the coming months. Jared, however, never complained. He was grateful for what they had. But one night, everything changed. It was late, the sky black as ink, when Jared sat alone in his barn. In his hand, he held a bottle of whiskey, something he rarely drank. He had always hated the taste, the burn in his throat, the way it clouded a man's judgment. But that night, something inside him stirred. Maybe it was the weight of his burdens. Maybe it was the way Evelyn had spoken about the other men in the village, the ones with land, money, and servants to do their bidding. Or maybe it was simply fate. As he took another sip, a strange sensation washed over him. The air around him grew heavy, thick like the mist that rolled in from the river at dawn. And then he heard it. A voice. Low, haunting, unfamiliar. "Jared Cole," it whispered. Jared froze, his heart pounding in his chest. He looked around, but there was no one. The voice spoke again. "Go to the Blackwood Hills on the first Sunday of the 9th month at midnight. There, you will find a fire burning deep within the forest. You must take what lies beside the fire before the flames consume it. Inside, you will find treasure and a mandate." Jared's breath came in short, shallow gasps. He didn't understand. "A mandate," he murmured. "You must follow it," the voice continued. "Exactly as it is written. Do this, and the fortune will be yours." Then, just as suddenly as it had come, the voice was gone. Jared sat in silence, the bottle trembling in his grasp. Was he drunk? Had exhaustion played tricks on his mind? Or was this real? He didn't know. But deep down, a seed of curiosity had been planted. The days passed slowly, each one bringing Jared closer to the night the voice had spoken of. He told Evelyn about what had happened, expecting her to dismiss it as a drunken hallucination. But she didn't. Instead, her eyes gleamed with something he had never seen before. "Hope. We have to go," she insisted. "This could change everything." Jared hesitated. A part of him feared the unknown. But Evelyn's excitement was infectious, and soon he found himself nodding. So, on the first Sunday of the 9th month, they set out under the cover of darkness. The journey to Blackwood Hills was long, the path twisting through ancient trees that loomed over them like silent guardians. The deeper they went, the colder the air became, until every breath felt like ice against their skin. Finally, they reached a clearing. And there, just as the voice had promised, a fire burned. The flames danced wildly, casting long, flickering shadows across the ground. And beside it, a worn leather bag sat untouched. Jared's pulse quickened. Was this real? Was this the treasure? He stepped forward, each movement slow, deliberate. Then, with one final glance at Evelyn, he reached down and grabbed the bag. The moment his fingers touched the leather, the fire roared, growing taller, hotter, wilder. Evelyn let out a gasp, stepping back as the flames twisted into shapes, figures of people, screaming, writhing in agony. Jared wasted no time. He pulled open the bag, his breath catching as he felt what was inside. Bones, a dagger, a bottle of whiskey, and a single piece of parchment. The mandate. He swallowed hard, his hands shaking as he unfolded the paper. The ink was dark, the words written in a language he barely recognized. But as he read, his blood ran cold. The mandate ordered him to kill a man named Samuel Grayson. Jared felt sick. He didn't know this man. He had never heard of him. And yet, the order was clear. His fingers clenched around the parchment. His mind raced. This was madness. This was impossible. We should leave, he whispered. But Evelyn's gaze was locked on the bag, her expression unreadable. No, she said. We should do what it says. Jared turned to her, disbelief flashing in his eyes. You want me to kill someone? She hesitated, then nodded. This could be our chance. The voice promised fortune. If we don't do this, we'll stay poor forever. Jared's stomach churned. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. But Evelyn's words haunted him. What if this was their only chance? That night he lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The mandate felt heavy in his hands, its presence like a weight pressing down on his soul. By morning, he had made his decision. The next evening, Jared sat in a tavern on the outskirts of town. The bottle of whiskey sat untouched in front of him. He was waiting, and then he heard the name. Samuel Grayson. A man across the room laughed, raising his glass in a toast. Jared's body stiffened. His grip tightened around the handle of the dagger hidden beneath his coat. The mandate had spoken. The voice had chosen. His heart pounded as he rose from his chair. And then he moved. There was a flash of steel, a cry of shock. The tavern erupted into chaos. And when the dust settled, Samuel Grayson lay still, his body covered in blood. Jared stood over him, his own breath ragged, his hands shaking. The room was silent, and then laughter, low, dark, echoing. Jared turned, his blood running cold as he saw a figure standing in the shadows. A man with no face. The voice, "You have done well," it whispered. "But your task is not yet complete." Jared tried to speak, but no sound came out. The laughter grew louder, and then the room disappeared. Jared awoke in darkness. The weight of the mandate was gone. The bag was gone. The tavern was gone. Only the voice remained. "You have taken a life," it said. "Now you must take another." Jared screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the night, and the mandate continued. Again, and again, forever.